Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Covert, and you are watching At Home with Symphoria, and I'm here with Brandon Gianetto, one of our violists. I almost said violinist. Oh my gosh. God strike me dead, right? How dare I confuse that? You might notice that I am not home today. I am down in the basement of Inspiration Hall because we are cooking up something good for you, and it has to do with our solstice evening of gratitude. So keep your eyes peeled for information about that. But that's why I'm here in the basement of Inspiration Hall today. So anyway, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm
Yeah.
hanging in. I'm hanging on. Actually, it's things have been pretty good for me. Like all things considered, been
Mm-hmm.
really focused on what I want to do, and like recently set goals for myself in terms of like viola and other things, and you know.
I love it. I love it. Well, so speaking of viola goals, what are you working on right now?
Oh man, it's a fairly long list. Currently, I'm working on certain technical things, specifically Tartini's Art of the Bow, which I want my bow to have a little more art to it, and I saw that title and was like, I think this will work out. But
Uh-huh.
it's pretty difficult, and it's I have to correct things by doing it, and it's really great to have the space to do that, because when you're learning music for a job, you can do it, but it's more difficult when you have things like deadlines. Space for yourself is so important, and that's something that I realized, living in New York for many years before coming here. Space is important, and it is important for us when we grow. Physical space and mental space too.
Well, it sounds like you're giving yourself the space that you need to just really enjoy this time that we have, because you're right, it is rare that
Mm-hmm.
we have the time and space to focus on the tiny parts of music that we don't often get to do outside of school.
Yeah.
Once you graduate from school, it's like all bets are off. Get going, practice the music that you're working on. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of school slash music, if you were not a musician, what do you think you would be?
I think that if I wasn't a musician, I would probably be doing something like something involving psychology, um, or counseling. Uh, During my time in New York, I actually taught through a social work organization, catering to Latina youth that were at risk for social problems, suicidal ideation, things like that. Heavy
Mhm.
things that young preteen teenage girls do, that think about when they're struggling. And so I was sort of like coaching them along with playing them, and I really responded to that very well. And
Mhm.
I really love listening to people. So I think that I would probably be, probably a child psychologist or a psychologist, something like that.
Well, and it's so fascinating to hear you say that, because it sounds like even though you were there in a musical capacity teaching, you still have that deep connection. And I think it just goes to show everyone how music can really break down barriers for people and get them to
Absolutely.
open up, right?
Hmm. It's
Uh-huh.
sort of like a medium through which you can
Mhm.
express other things. And when I take lessons now, it's because I'm taking lessons, I'm taking online lessons as I learn, this Tartini and the Rager Sonata, and doing other things. And I'm realizing that it really does feel like therapy, in that I'm reluctant to do it on a certain level when I first get into it, in the way that you would be. But then when you get into it, you see all these solutions that you didn't see before. And sometimes they're easy fixes. So it's true. So,
I love that. I love that. So we've been home now for what, like 10 or 11 weeks? It seems like years. Um, what is something that you're indulging in right now?
oh, well, I did say that I wasn't going to mention Animal Crossing, but I think now would be a good time. I'd say that video games are like a definite guilty pleasure. I feel like I should be reading, you know, more than I am. I should be doing more than I'm doing. And that's something that's like, I have a limited time, but sometimes, I don't know. But yeah, Animal Crossing has been my current biggest guilty pleasure.
All right. Is that the one that you have to ask people for things?
Basically, like it's sort of like a home domestic simulator where you do gardening and DIY projects, things that I actually don't think are fun at all in real life, but you're constantly receiving positive reinforcement as you do it from like Blathers, the happy owl, or like these cute raccoon things, or like a happy like duckling that's like, trying to be a pop star or something, and it's really cutesy and fun. So
Well, that sounds adorable, and maybe I need to check this out too.
yeah,
Although, sounds like it can be a little bit of a time suck.
it is. I haven't done it in a few days, but and the other thing is that it exists when you're not doing it, so you log back in and it's like
Oh,
time has
everything
elapsed. Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like a little farmer.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for your honesty in that. I am glad that you shared.
Yeah.
What are you listening to these days?
Oh man, that's a heavy question in a way because I listen to so many like different things. Lately, I've been listening a lot to Meredith Monk. She's kind of like a composer, but also she like freed the human voice as like a musical instrument. So she does all these weird things with her voice. She's based in Brooklyn, so I've been listening to her sort of opera Atlas, which is an opera, but she doesn't use language to like explain the narrative of it. It's all like musical, like tactile
Interesting.
vocalization. Along with that, I've been listening to a lot of like industrial music. Like I really like certain groups like Death Grips and like stuff that's really different than what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And my usual, I like my like Britney Spears and Rihanna's too, kind of. I gotta confess.
That is quite the range, Brandon. That is quite the range. Maybe you could, you said Meredith Monk?
Yes.
Maybe you could post a link after in the comments because I think people would be really interested to hear what you're talking about because it's sort of hard to imagine.
Oh yeah, and you will immediately know what I mean. Her entire concept of like how she uses her voice is like an instrumentalist does it in such a like tasteful, thoughtful way. And she's still composing. She's older now. I want to say she's like in her 80s now. I'm not totally sure, but she's been active since like the 60s. She was like part of like the hippie culture then, I think. And
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. I can't wait to hear it. So we do have some people watching, and nobody has put any questions or comments in yet, but I just want to encourage those of you who are live, or even if you're watching after the fact, to go ahead and put your questions in for Brandon. He's going to pop back in and answer those for you guys on Facebook. So this is your chance to know all of the inner workings of Brandon Gianetto.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been, like I said, a while since we've been on stage together, and I know all of us are anxious to get back there again. What are you most looking forward to when we're on stage performing again?
The rehearsal process.
Ooh, this is interesting. Tell me more.
Well, in my own personal practice, which I've been doing a lot of, despite the Animal Crossing, I've been doing a lot of. I realize that there are things that I can be accountable for myself, and there are things that only other people can give me. And playing music alone, it's easy for it to feel like a tired exercise after a while because it's communication, it's socialization, and the rehearsal process. You see what other people do, see things that you do that you like, and it influences you, and there's a common interest behind that. And the concert is kind of like the culmination of that process, but in a way it's a part of that process. And I noticed that when I was working during my year with Symphoria, that the way the orchestra sounded in March before we left was different in a way than September, in a subtle way. And I didn't really realize that would be true, but it was, you know, and I felt differently about my role in it. It's probably because I'm you know, new as of this year. But yeah, the rehearsal process, the trial of elimination that goes with like interpreting the music and playing for a conductor, you know, blending in a section, it's all of it.
Yeah, and you know what I think is interesting is that really the orchestra itself is like this living, breathing, changing, growing organism, you know? And like you said, we sounded different in March than we did in September. And I think that's because we listen to each other, we learn from each other, we're always growing, we're always changing, we're always being receptive to new ideas. And I think that's something that's really magical about the orchestra, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and I felt it on a personal level because, you know, when you first start playing with people, you know, over a long-term, very consistent basis, you know, it's easy to feel not 100% comfortable at first. And I found that in the fall, I obviously felt comfortable because, you know, Symphoria is a really nice bunch, and I had played that with them previously as a substitute for years. But I felt like more at home as the time went on there. And I felt that I understood how to match and how to do things and how to, and just how to play with the group better. And that transformation was really like valuable to me. It just meant a lot to me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really beautiful insight, and something that nobody has really tapped into yet on that question. So I really appreciate that, Brandon.
Yeah.
And look at this. Emily Bass says hello just in time for the lightning round questions.
Now I'm nervous.
Which Emily and Walden provided. Their interview was last Thursday. We didn't have an interview on Monday because of Memorial Day. So if you missed Emily and Walden Bass, you should go back and watch that because it was a really great interview. So don't be nervous, but are you ready? Deep breaths, deep breaths. Okay.
I'm ready.
What non-musical thing do you love to do in Syracuse?
The hiking, the nature stuff. So I guess I don't know if that qualifies as Syracuse because it's like an urban area, but
I think so. I like Central New York. We'll expand.
Yeah. I mean, the classic, like living in New York. You know, I'm from Oswego originally, so I'm actually originally from upstate New York. I'm an upstate New York native, and I'm a country boy. My parents are farmers. You know, so living in New York at first, I was like, I'm urban. I'm gonna like feel right at home here, and I need that energy of living in a city, but I find that in Syracuse, like I need the nature stuff. I really need it, and that's really great that I love that so much because right now, you know, that's kind of what my summer is going to be as far as leaving the house a lot of the time. You know, I can't go to restaurants and do.
Yeah, exactly. What's one of your favorite hikes?
I really like there are a few waterfalls. I mean, I know more of the ones in Ithaca, like Taganic Falls. I love basically like the whole of Central New York. So I guess that's not just Syracuse. I loved Green Lakes. I went there for the first time last week. I hadn't been there yet.
Oh my gosh, the first time. That's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it looks like Technicolor in person. You know, like the Wizard of Oz and like the color, like it looks like crazy.
We'll have to talk later because I'm guessing that you didn't go up into what is called the Serengeti at Green Lakes. That's away from the lakes, but there's a whole system of hiking trails, and I've actually gotten lost up there before, which was a little bit scary, but I found my way back down. And but it's really beautiful, and there's views, and it's a gorgeous place.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I have the hiking bug, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I love this one. What is your favorite bad viola joke?
Ooh. Can I even think of one? Oh man, I'm like dropping the ball on this question. I know the one about viola being like kindling or something. Maybe I'm just repressing it. I don't know. Oh no.
You block them out of your mind as soon as you hear them.
You know, it's sort of like been something that's I've heard so much that I just ignore them now.
Well, then I think what we'll need to have done is that Walden and Emily will have to post their favorite bad viola joke, since you couldn't think of one.
I will, yes, and if I think of one, if I can think of one upon reflection, I will also do the same, because I really can't think of one.
That's funny. What was your favorite piece that we played this past season?
Daphnis and Chloe.
Me too. It was so good.
It's like, well, the thing about it is that I'm like 100% sure that, you know, most Ravel things were originally for piano, right? And then he wrote the orchestra part. And when you play, like, I've played a lot of those other pieces like La Valse and what's the other one? The Spanish influenced one, Albadora de Graziosa. I can't remember if that's the name of it. I played it years ago. But you see those parts, and on the page, you can tell you're playing a piano part, but Daphnis, it's like every single part feels like it was written for that instrument. And it's so like brilliantly realized in a way that's particular to orchestra, which is something that you don't always see even with Ravel. It's always like masterful, but it's rarely like so every instrument is like part is so idiomatic, and just the music is elevating.
It's almost overwhelming. That's how I felt playing it. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to make it alive to the end. It was so exciting.
It's yeah, that piece is everything. And also probably also the Mozart, Beethoven, that whole concert I just loved. The Grosse Fugue and Mozart 41, and I could play Mozart.
Wasn't that the first concert where we did the reverse seating for the strings?
Oh yes, I love sitting that way.
I know the violists were really loving that. So.
Oh yeah, we were living our best life. That configuration for sure.
Okay, so Emily wants to know if you cook, and if you do, what's your favorite thing to whip up?
I don't like cooking that much.
No, you don't cook.
But when I do whip, okay, I have a story though. Once upon a time, I don't care for cooking, and I live alone. Cooking like for just yourself is kind of a drag, like doing something extensive. So I guess, and I'm a foodie in that I like eating, but
as long as someone else makes it for you.
But once upon a time, I was in North Carolina. I was a fellow at with the Eastern Festival Orchestra at Eastern Music Festival, and they do a chili cook-off. And a lot of people are from like, you know, southern states or like Texas or Tennessee. My chili won. I a Yankee.
Well,
it was probably like the least modest I've ever been in my life. So
essentially now what we have to call you is Brandon the Chili King Gianetto.
I look back on that with such pride.
That's fantastic.
I don't know how to. I'm not good at cooking, but I can make a pretty good chili. I mean,
apparently you're the king. Yeah. You're the king. Well, Brandon, this has been so fun. I've so enjoyed chatting with you today. And make sure you get in the comments and post a link to some Meredith Monk so we can all hear what you're talking about. And I cannot wait to see you in person sometime very soon.
I can't even explain. I cannot wait. It's going to feel so good.
So good. It's going to feel so good. So thank you to all of you who joined us today, and be sure to tune in on Monday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern when we're going to connect with our orchestra manager, John Mosbo, without technical difficulties this time. We got it worked out, and so that is a little bit overdue, and we're going to get to John on Monday. So see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.